Good morning, and thank you everyone for joining us. We still have a number of people that are filing into the room here, so we'll get started in about 1 minute. Okay, great. Thanks so much everyone for joining us today. We are excited to be here with you talking about how to find a provider in what might be one of the toughest job markets most of us have ever seen. So thanks again for joining us. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The presentation should be about 30 minutes. We are going to try to leave some time at the end for Q&A, and we're happy to stay on a little bit longer if we need to. And if you do have questions throughout the presentation, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom interface. So you can go ahead and type those in there at any time, and we will answer those at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Hersicorn, who is a practice consultant with Pivot Hearing, and he specializes in and is a real expert in kind of all things HR, especially recruiting. So you're in good hands, and take it away, John.
Hey, morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending upon where you are. Thanks for joining us this morning. We want to talk a little bit about recruiting. This is a reasonably significant part of the Pivot Hearing consulting portfolio. We do all things HR, as Chelsea mentioned, but one of the key things is helping our practices recruit. And as Chelsea said, this is a very tight employees market, shall we say. And so we wanted to offer some thoughts about recruiting, especially for a dispenser. So let's begin. The first thing, obviously, to do when you're thinking about adding some provider capacity to your practice is assessing the need. And so we'll take a look at that. How do you combat the hot job market for dispensers? We'll talk about all the basic recruiting techniques, writing a job description, how to interview, phone screening, in-person interviews, etc. And then finally making the decision, and then how to some thoughts on how to manage a post-hire, especially in the early going. All right, so let's get started. So when you start to think about adding a provider, you have to think about not just, boy, I'm stressed, I got a million things to do and not enough time to do them. I could really use some help. Going from that state to, I really want to hire a provider. You have to think about, will your market support it? Do you need that production right now or down the road sometime? It's sometimes better if you can foresee the need before you actually have a need, because it takes some time to get things going. Can you afford to pay the provider market wages, whatever the market wages are in your area? You need to ask yourself, what will it take? Because usually what we're talking about here, except for one case, which I'll discuss in a slide or two, you're trying to hire someone away from competition. So they're already making a salary. They already have a job, maybe some benefits, etc. So you have to think about, okay, what would I need to do to actually recruit that person over from a competitor, pay them as they get started in our practice, and can I afford all that with the amount of business that they'll be doing right out of the gate? So you have to just think about all those things. Kind of a brief rule of thumb that we use at Pivot Hearing is the max total compensation for a provider should not exceed 20% of a provider's revenue. That generally, and again, this is very general, doesn't apply to every situation, but this will basically keep you out of trouble where you're you could be tempted to pay more to a provider than your revenue would actually justify. So that's just a figure of merit to keep in mind. It is a hot market. This is just one example of a listing on Audiology Online. We were recruiting for a particular practice in the Orlando area. And so I wanted to see, gee, what's the competition going to be like? And these are all the openings that came up. So, I mean, we have, our own market wave in this industry, which is bringing more of the hearing loss to our offices every day. We have a shortage of audiology graduates. We have a shortage of dispensers. We have increased manufacturers' outlets and various retail outlets. We have an increase in third-party demands for dispensing, which puts a burden on mostly independents. And other factors, just coming out of the pandemic, people wanting to get back rolling and starting things again. So it's definitely a hot market. One alternative, and this is an interesting one that many of our clients have pursued, hire a trainee. Some of our most successful clients have been able to hire a trainee, get them a temporary license, and they're seeing patients within 4 to 6 months, and in some cases taking on a load. And so it can be a real success story. This is, when you offer to train somebody to be a hearing aid dispenser in your practice, you may find that you can actually find very hungry people who are looking for a long-term secure career that'll support their family, change their stars, etc., and that they're highly motivated, they're intelligent, they're highly motivated, and they make for a great solution to the problem. The cons are, of course, is that you have to go through the licensing process. Not everybody passes on the first time, as you all know, and it requires your time to teach and tolerate a shadow and absorb a few mistakes that are made in the beginning, and etc. But we have found that this is can be a very successful way to combat the shortage for dispensing talent. But anyway, when you start to think about a job for a dispenser, it really starts with the characteristics of the person. You need to think about those characteristics. I've listed a few in the box that seem to come up on many of our clients' lists. But you need to start with those, prioritize them, put them down on paper, and then, most importantly, develop an interview process that tests for these characteristics. And then you make your decision based on their presence and their quality in the individuals that you're interviewing. Seems like obvious, seems like a basic, but you would be surprised at how many people do not go at it in this way. So this will, of course, help you define the person that you really want, and then help you interview to make sure that those qualities are present. We promote a technique that's been around for a long time. It's called behavioral interviewing, and basically, just reading the quote at the top of the slide, interview questions where the interviewee is asked to describe situations in which they were able to apply specific skills or characteristics to solve problems and address challenges. So the whole idea behind behavioral interviewing is you're not asking questions that can easily be answered with a simple one-liner, or certainly not a yes or a no. Really, the most important thing about behavioral interviewing, or interviewing in general, is getting the applicant to talk. Because usually if the applicant talks long enough, you'll find out whether they're a good fit for your practice. The one technique to do this is to ask a basic question, a behavioral question, like, for example, describe a time when your patience was really stretched to the limit in a real work situation. And tell me what tends to be the buttons that push your patience. And then just let the candidate talk about, first of all, dead space is fine. Let them think. If they think and they can describe to you a real situation that happened to them, that's the best case. And then your job is to listen and probe. Sometimes the key things that you learn about a candidate don't become obvious until you've asked your second or third probing question about a particular characteristic. So it's really important that the candidates talk and that you listen carefully to their answers, because that's where you're going to get the information you need to decide whether they are the right person for you. In the resume, most of these recruiting start with some sort of online recruiting tool, like Indeed is the most popular one in the United States right now, and a popular one that we have clients use. When you're screening for resumes, or screening resumes, you're looking for evidence of the key characteristics. You're always going back to those things that are going to make or break your job. So you've listed the key characteristics that prioritize them. And so you begin to look for hints for those in the resume, in addition to, scrutinizing how well the resume is put together. If it's put together haphazard, something you wouldn't do, people generally don't change colors. They generally are who they are, and they are going to, if they've done a sloppy resume, if you're interested in that kind of characteristic, may not be the person for you. So definitely scrutinize the resume, read the cover letter if they've provided one. Look at their job history, length of employment, gaps in employment. The focus is really on accomplishments, not on responsibilities. It's amazing to me that even after 20 years of online, or 15 years maybe of online kind of recruiting, that candidates still just list responsibilities they had, which of course doesn't tell you much if they didn't accomplish them. So it's all about what did they accomplish while they were employed in a certain place, not the list of responsibilities they had, because it doesn't really tell you how they're going to perform in your practice. And make sure their education requirements meet your minimums. Although resume screening does not provide enough information to warrant a one-on-one interview. This is really important, because one-on-one interviews where you're actually meeting with someone in your office setting, that takes a tremendous amount of your time and resources to put together, to schedule, to get the time, to maybe have them sit with 2 or 3 different people. So you want to make sure your candidates are pretty qualified. And for that, we use a phone screening process. The phone screening process is really it's a precursor to the one-on-one interview, where you take a look at the resume. You first identify any red flags that might be something that you're concerned about. Get explanations for gaps in employment. Identify why they're leaving their current position, or if they haven't left, why they're thinking about it. Oftentimes that's a tell. Ask them why they're interested in the position you have, especially see if they've done any research at all. it's amazing to me how people can apply for a job and they don't even go to the website to see who you are. So you definitely want to do that. The curious people, the diligent people will actually go and check you out, and that's good. That's a good sign. You definitely want to use behavioral interviewing techniques in this interview. I tend to usually recommend, and I myself will ask 2 or 3 behavioral interviewing questions like the one that I demonstrated earlier that get at the most important characteristics. I don't want to see someone go to a one-on-one interview in your office setting unless you've got an idea that they're really a potential fit. And so you want to do everything you can to screen for that. I always also look for talk versus listen tendencies. I really don't like to send people to one-on-one interviews who don't listen to the questions or talk too much or talk off topic. I like people to make crisp answers, stay on topic, listen to the question, reply to it appropriately, etc. That can save you a lot of time. If you're like me, I like people who stay on task and who are focused, and I think those people make the best employees. Also, another question I like to ask them is where they see themselves in 5 years, because you're going to make an investment in this person, whether you're training them as a prospect or not, or whether you're actually hiring a dispenser. You want to know what's their plan. Where do they see themselves, and you have to assess, is it going to be something that that's worth investing our practice resources in, should this person only have a short-term outlook. Okay, and then we get to the one-on-one interview, and these are usually now pretty highly qualified candidates. They've proposed, they've put in their resume, you have screened their resume, you have phone screened them, and now you're thinking about interviewing them with a couple of colleagues. Questions should be kind of an expansion of behavioral interviewing questions, meaning, they should address the broadest set of characteristics that you consider to be the minimum required for your position. And you're looking for evidence of demonstration of these characteristics. Okay, so think of yourself as a lawyer. When you're interviewing people, you're looking for evidence of something demonstrated. So answers that are short, that don't involve a real situation, that can be just a theoretical expression from the candidate when they have never actually been in a situation that would demonstrate that characteristic or something. So you want to basically make sure that you get the evidence you need of demonstrated characteristics that are most important to you. You should be interviewing with a team, at least 1 or 2 other members in addition to the practice owner. Each interviewer should ask different questions. You do not want to waste your time by having every interviewer do their own thing and find out that 50% of the questions were asked the same question. And so you waste the interviewer's time, you waste the interviewee's time, and you don't get as much information. So you want to do a little pre-preparation, assign everyone questions that are different, and then have each interviewer ask the candidates the exact same questions, because you want a completely level playing field between candidates. You don't want bias in your system at all. Interviews should typically be 30 to 45 minutes. You don't have to belabor it. Oftentimes you can get what you need very quickly. And I recommend against team interviews. People like to do that because they feel like it's a little bit more comfortable, less confrontation, but you get less information and you open yourself up to group bias, which I don't like. So we really recommend that people are interviewing one-on-one with a person, and that each person collects the information that they need, and then you get together and get to the point where you're making a decision. Some people like the democratic approach, where each interviewer comes prepared with their notes, and you basically tell them in advance, we're going to have this meeting. We're going to expect you to recount each candidate. So take notes, discuss each candidate, leave enough time in the meeting so that you can do a proper, thorough review. Some people like the democratic process, which requires you to assign some kind of a rank to for each person, and then you vote or you add up scores, or in some cases the practice owner just makes the decision. It doesn't really matter. The most important thing is that all the evidence is out on the table before you make that very, very important decision, and you feel like you've got everything that you need. And then an often overlooked thing is the post-hire management. This is a new employee. Create a training plan for them, especially obviously for dispensing candidates who are not yet licensed. It's critical. But even for any new hire, there are certain things that you're going to want to impose upon this particular dispenser, things that your practice does, ways in which you want things done, that they're going to have to learn. They may be different from someone coming from a different dispensing company. So you've got to be careful that you train them in exactly the way you want things done. Evaluate performance regularly. We like to tell people, look, when you've got a new employee, set the expectation that they're going to be in a performance evaluation mode for a few months, where you're every 2 weeks gathering feedback from others, having a chat with them and providing that feedback, and correcting any things that are not quite the way you want to see them. And usually when you do simple things like this, it can be 15 minutes every 2 weeks to just review. It's amazing how many things you can head off at the pass that could be problems later on. You also want to create a real open door for any questions that they might have, especially during this early time. So what we do at Pivot with our clients, when we go through that, that's generally the practice that we go through. What we do is we work to help you craft a job description. We work with you to establish an account for your practice on a recruiting site. Usually we recommend Indeed because it's kind of the go-to for all things in the corporate US these days. We post the job, we screen resumes, we phone screen candidates, and then we present to our clients candidates which we think meet the criteria that they're looking for and are pre-screened for that. And we're actually recommending that they would probably make good candidates for the position. And it's surprising if you go through the process is really the magic. It's not the people involved. It's just following the process. When you follow the process, usually the results are very, very good. So that's what we do at Pivot Hearing. It's a critical time to kind of get businesses back on track after the pandemic, and we're here to help.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Before we jump into the Q&A, and so just a reminder, if you do have a question and you haven't asked it yet, feel free to do that now. I wanted to share our philosophy for those of you who don't know us super well, which is that when private practices put patient care and experience at the center and build fortified business models around that, they'll succeed no matter the challenges that arise. Start with patient care and business results will follow. As we wrap up, I want to read our mission statement, which is Pivot Hearing stands with private practices because we believe that you provide the best patient care, and it is our vision to successfully fortify your practice to thrive in your local market. The key to your success now and in the future is to develop and communicate compelling reasons why patients should choose you over other competitive alternatives in the market, whether those alternatives are big box stores, managed care entities, or even, potential government legislation that may come at some point in the future. And then ensure that each member of your team lives and breathes these values every day in your practice, which is where the recruiting piece comes in and is so important. Pivot Hearing develops impactful, forward-thinking, real-world tools to help private practices compete. And we don't just bring ideas, we also deliver lightning-fast execution so your practice can stay one step ahead. We offer practice development in 3 major categories. Offense, which are the ways we help you acquire new patients. Defense, the ways we help you nurture and engage your existing patient database, as well as defend against any and all competitive threats. And coaching. This is all of the other practice management support we deliver to you and your team. So recruiting and training new staff is one example of this category of offerings. As fellow practice owners and seasoned consultants, nobody offers better thinking around what it's going to take for private practices to succeed in the near, medium, and long term. Nobody executes as quickly on the database decisions we help you make, so things get done well, quickly, and move your business forward. The beautiful thing about our model is that working with Pivot Hearing likely won't even cost you anything, and it may even save you money. We offer extremely competitive hearing aid pricing. You retain manufacturer perks and benefits that you already have, and there are no contracts, commitments, or minimums. We love the chance to get to know you, your practice, and your market a little better to see if we can support you and help you grow. So we'll be following up with you after this webinar with an invitation to schedule a one-on-one consultation, and we're happy to talk to you about your market, your business, whether it's the right time to hire a provider, how to go about it, and to help you do that if you're interested. So I'm going to move to the Q&A now. Okay, so I have a question here. You mentioned recruiting dispensers. Can you also help recruit audiologists?
Yes. We've not had great results using the US-wide databases of audiologists because usually they tend, you can sort them by region, but getting down to any particular region, unless you're willing to offer a moving relocation and various things, people tend to work where they are. But yeah, I mean, the same basic principles apply for hiring a audiologist as they do for a dispenser or a front office staff or anyone really. The difference is you can recruit for audiologists on Indeed, but we would probably recommend that you also advertise on some of the more audiology, audio focused collegial sites, so like Audiology Online or some of the others. So
great, and that kind of answers another question we had around which websites to use. So I think you've addressed that. So thank you. Someone here is saying that the professional websites in our industry don't seem to be working as well as they did in the past. So it sounds like somebody here is suggesting using, maybe it's like an outside consultant or something. I'm not totally clear on it, but I don't know if you have any comments on that, John.
Yeah, I mean, I think the places where people meet and congregate and exchange ideas and stuff is always changing, especially now with all the digital resources available to people. So Facebook accounts, Facebook groups, all different ways in which people communicate and gather are potential places for recruiting. So yeah, we're open to anything that especially regionally that seems to work for their area.
Okay, great. And then Scott Frank is one of our attendees this morning, and
hey, Scott,
many of you know, he is the administrator of a Facebook group online where he does his audiology coffee talks, and he is mentioning that he's done some recent coffee talks on this topic as well, kind of recruiting and then benefits and compensation for audiologists and other providers. So just a little plug for that. If you're not a member of the Audiology Antics Facebook group, go check it out. And there's some other resources there as well that may be helpful to you if you're struggling to recruit during this tough market. Kind of related to that, here's a question. What types of salary, benefits, commission structures, bonuses are you seeing out there right now, John? Like, what are people having to offer in order to be competitive, whether it's for dispensers or audiologists or both?
Yeah, it's it's very region dependent, as you can imagine. The answers for someplace in California versus central Pennsylvania are very, very different. But I can say that our experience is over the last year that wages have definitely increased. It's more competitive to get someone. You definitely have to, if someone is looking at your position and favors it over the big box job they have now or something like that, they may be getting a salary, benefits, and some sort of commission. Well, you'll have to think about what would it take for me to actually recruit that person from the competition, which means that you'll have to be open to offering a signing bonus perhaps, or to guaranteeing a certain salary for a time, and maybe even offering commission that maybe you hadn't thought of previously. One thing we have found is that dispenser candidates are very open to commission work, even 100% commission. So they've been in the business, they kind of know the score, they know they can produce. So that's one way in which to kind of scale up someone is to go more on the commission side for their total compensation, and that way they kind of grow with you as they get used to your practice.
Great. And one thing I'll just mention is we've done a lot of helping owners come up with compensation plans for providers. I think there's like not necessarily a one size fits all approach to that. There's, what you've done historically in your practice and what may make sense for somebody new that you're bringing on, and depending on, the role and how much diagnostics and how much hearing aids and where you want the focus to be and things like that. So that's something that we do kind of on a one-on-one consultative basis. So if you do need help figuring out what the right comp structure is for a new provider, that's something Pivot can help you with as well.
Health benefits remain a key item, a huge selling feature.
Yep, for sure. Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions we have. And I know we're at time here and I want to let everybody get back. I'm sure everyone's busy since nobody has the providers they need these days. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll send you an email and follow up as well. So thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, people.